What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to talk about 6 players skyrocketing up my rankings. I always like to put this video out when I have rankings updates fresh off the press. We just got done with a massive rankings update on Patreon. If you want to go out there and dominate your leagues, make sure you check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It'll be in the description. It'll be pinned down below at the top of the comment section. And essentially what it is it's not only just me putting player X versus player Y, but making sure that the rankings are structurally sound, where I have running backs pushed up in the beginning for hero RB builds, then just an absolute slew of wide receivers from rounds 3 through 6. And then I actually have the running backs that I like in that green zone of Ramondre Stevenson, Chase Edmonds, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all pushed up in that round 7, round 8 area to make sure that you're drafting structurally sound teams. You also get my positional tiers, my complete tiers. You can see the biggest movers, the biggest risers and fallers every week. Along with that, I'm telling you guys, I give out almost too much value on the Patreon. You get redraft rankings, dynasty rankings. On top of the redraft experience, you'll get my waiver wire advice, fab guidance, rest of season rankings, my weekly rankings. A ton of stuff is out there on the Patreon. So if you want to go out there and dominate the season, make sure you check it out. Now, we're not going to waste any more time. Make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let's go.
Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag.
All right, so the first guy we're going to talk about, Juju Smith-Schuster. And he was my 508 as my wide receiver 31, and now he's my 403 as my wide receiver 22. Now, when I talk about previous ranks, this is from the last time we did a skyrocketing video, which I want to say was August 1st. So this is since that big update. Juju Smith-Schuster has moved up a round and a half and went from being a mid-range wide receiver 3 to me to being a back-end wide receiver 2. And I'll be the first to admit, these past few seasons, I haven't been a big Juju guy. He's kind of left a sour taste in our mouth at this point. And I think that's why I had him in a spot on the rankings where I was about on market. I wasn't too excited about him. Okay, he is the perceived wide receiver 1 on the Chiefs, but who knows if he's even that talented? Who knows how much Kelsey takes away? Who knows how much Sky Moore takes away? Is he just a boring slot wide receiver? And I think the lack of enthusiasm just from these last 3 years of, him being in a Steelers offense, getting targets from Big Ben, I think the lack of talent is overstated. He had a 111 catch, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdown season as a second-year player. And I know that at this point is like 3-4 years backwards. But when we think about Waddle or Rashad Bateman or Elijah Moore or Amon-Ra St. Brown, imagine if they come out here this year and they put up 100-plus catches, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Any of those guys go out here and do that, we're heralding them as this next stud wide receiver, putting them in the top 10 dynasty wide receiver rankings. And that's what we did with Juju. And I don't even want to say that it was premature because I think that all the signs were there. It's just it didn't work out. As sometimes things just don't work out in the fantasy community or just the fantasy space. But I think it was the right move. And I think it would be wrong to call him not a talented wide receiver. At this point, in his first 4 seasons with over 12 games played. I don't know why. I'm choking on my words here, fellas. A little bit of a tongue twister there. But he has finished in the top 24 wide receivers twice. In the top 12 once. Through his first 4 seasons, that's a pretty great track record for an early career wide receiver. And I think the biggest issue that I've had with Juju's profile is that he's not the prototypical wide receiver I like to target. I like these prototypical perimeter X wide receivers who are target hogs. They earn routes, they have a high target per route run, and Juju is a weird archetype where he doesn't win on the outside. He doesn't win against press man. He's a slot wide receiver, and he just benefits from low ADOT junk, low calorie targets. And he hasn't crested a 20% target share since his second year. So he does fit into that weird archetype where he's not earning a ton of targets. He's not being super efficient on the Steelers. But I think now there's reason for optimism because he's going to be the slot wide receiver with Mahomes. He is good at one thing. Or I'm not going to say one thing. That's a little bit mean to say that he's good at one thing. But his specialty is beating zone. And he was in the 83rd percentile against beating zone last year. And all of those concerns about target earning, quality concerns, I think are less of a big deal when you're benefiting from the efficiency of Pat Mahomes. You're going to get Pat Mahomes targets. You're going to have higher touchdown potential in this offense. So where if he was on the Steelers getting passes from Big Ben and, it's already inefficient passes from Big Ben on a middle-of-the-road offense, who really cares? But when we talk about a top 5 scoring environment with only really Kelce next to him, that gets really interesting for me when it comes to Juju. And again, last year he was the 83rd percentile against zone. And in 2019, that's one of his big breakout years. He had the 11th all-time success rate versus zone season on reception perception. So he's a talented wide receiver. He's a technician against zone, and he's in this unique spot where I think even as a low ADOT slot, he has a ton of upside in the context of his offense. You also have to think about it too, where Mahomes is a really good improviser, and he's really good at picking apart defenses. And one of Kelce's biggest, I don't want to say, I'll say abilities, is he'll just make up routes sometimes and just kind of see where the zones are settling themselves out. And he'll just, sit in between a pocket after doing some kind of weird, hitch at the top of his route. And then he'll just sit in a pocket of the zone where he's wide open. And I think that works for Mahomes, where he's going to be improvising. He's going to be kind of buying time in the pocket, looking downfield, seeing what he can get to work down there. And then if not, he'll sort of work back to the Kelces of the world. And he's a quarterback who, if you look at quarterback heat maps, you'll see like a Russell Wilson. And I want to say Aaron Rodgers is this way too, but they like to stay on the perimeter, stay towards the sidelines, comeback routes, streaks, all that. Mahomes, I think, is a little bit more willing to go across the middle. You'll see all the time he'll like roll out to his right, sidearm it across the middle. He's a little bit more open to throwing those routes across the middle, and I think that's where Juju thrives along with Kelce. And I think that they can almost, the way I'm explaining it, it almost seems like their skill sets are redundant to each other, but I almost want to say that they'll complement each other, kind of just making it really hard to contain them in the middle of the field while you have like Marcus Valdez-Scantling and Sky Moore running a little bit more of those deep routes with Mecole Hardman. So I think it does get interesting there, where he's going to be able to beat zone over the middle, whatever they want to do in terms of, backing off 2 shell deep. I think Juju thrives in this role. Now, we talked about this before, and Jacob Sanderson, friend of the channel, has brought it up a few times. I want to say either on a show that I saw him on or on Twitter, but he does have very much Godwin-type vibes, where Godwin, if you look at Godwin's like wide receiver 3 point per game season from like year 3, or it might have been wide receiver 2 point per game season, but he got there on not a ton of targets, but he had yak and some touchdowns, and he was only like a 22% target share guy with Jameis Winston, and he got there. There should be enough pass attempts, enough scoring, enough yards, everything to go around, where Juju, I'm not going to say he's going to come out here and ever be like a 26% target share guy, but comes out here as like a 22 to 24% target share guy. He benefits from the efficiency out of the slot. I think it's hard for me to see where he doesn't finish as a top 24 wide receiver. So I'm actually very much in on Juju at any point in the 5th round. If you're staring down Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he's a great pick there. And I know I have him as my 403, and you'll be able to get him in the 5th round a lot of the time. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about is Michael Thomas. And I had him as my 603, as the wide receiver 35, and now I have him as my 505 as the wide receiver 30. So I'm now right on market with ADP, I believe, right? 5 times 12 is 60, minus 5 is 55. So I want to say, I think I'm like maybe 2 spots ahead of the market. And I had Michael Thomas as a 6th rounder during the last update just because of injury risk, and now we have a ton of positive news on the health side of things, and if you want to draft Michael Thomas, it's going to cost you a 5th rounder, and I'm fine with that price. We're getting more solid reports coming out. We have this. We just have a ton of hype coming out of camp, and I hate to really like buy into hype like this, but he's getting a lot of positive reviews. He's not on the pup. It seems like he's good to go for week 1. It seems like there is no setbacks at this point. You have Saints head coach Dennis Allen saying, when I watch Michael Thomas at practice, I see the Michael Thomas that I saw pre-injury. And as long as he's healthy, that's really all it comes down to with Michael Thomas, because he's a known commodity, right? Me and you, we know what Michael Thomas does. And it really just comes down to if you think he's the same guy or not. And in my eyes, he's really not as dusty as I think we viewed him as, because it has been 2 years since he's had a good season. But he's only 29. and I say only with a little bit of, give me some slack there. That is a little bit old, but for a wide receiver, 29 is not that old. Devontae Adams is older than him. Keenan Allen's older than him. DeAndre Hopkins is older. Travis Kelce is older. And I'm not saying that he's better than all those guys, but I'm just saying that those are all guys who carry similar age-related downside that go ahead of him. Maybe not Hopkins doesn't go ahead of him, but if Hopkins wasn't suspended, he would. And Michael Thomas has that all baked in, where the downside risk is all there as a fifth-round guy. I think you could make the case, if Michael Thomas wasn't coming off of like an injury or anything, you can make the case that he should go right ahead of Keenan Allen early third round. But we're getting a discount because of that uncertainty. I think it's probably smart to lean into that uncertainty. And the last time we saw Michael Thomas on the field, he was a stud. He had success on all routes besides, I guess, comebacks in 2020. And this was the year where he wasn't even that good for fantasy. He was only like a 14-point-per-game guy, played for a little bit, and then was gone for the entire season. But on a per-route basis, in terms of success versus man and press, he looked great. 91st percentile versus man, 88th percentile versus press. Kind of similar to what we saw with Allen Robinson last year, where Allen Robinson had a bad year last year, but if you dig deeper and look at reception perception, he looked pretty good. And you're paying an early fourth for Allen Robinson. I think Michael Thomas is the discount Allen Robinson, where we're buying the dip on a better situation and believing in the talent, and you're getting another round discount on an Allen Robinson with Michael Thomas. Now, of course, Allen Robinson's going to be on a better offense than Michael Thomas, so there is more factors there. But when you zoom out, I think their profiles are similar. I think that's fair to say as guys that are, I wouldn't say past their prime, but really, just about to crest 30, coming off some uncertainty, but things to sort of hold on to in terms of talent from reception perception. And Michael Thomas is going to have Jameis Winston this year. And I know people sort of are apprehensive towards that, but Jameis Winston is going to be somebody that's going to air it out no matter what. He supported top 5 wide receiver seasons before between Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, the guy we talked about earlier as that year 3 breakout, he plays in a similar role to Michael Thomas where, you're playing out of the slot. Jameis Winston's going to target you. Not super hard to see where Michael Thomas finishes as a top 12 wide receiver this year. It really wouldn't shock me at all. I also know I showed the his player card from Underdog. By the way, promo code Ron on Underdog gets you up to $100 deposit match on their site when you use promo code Ron. But I'm only at 6.1% Michael Thomas exposure. I want that to go up. Know that I have a foolish amount in Dynasty, maybe like 30 to 40%. I need to start getting more Michael Thomas because I remember there were times we could get him for much cheaper than this. When we were doing the big board drafts and stuff, I was getting him like 6th, 7th round, and that was money. I got to start, force myself to get him back into the 5th round because I do think that he has some monster upside this year. If he just is that same guy, if he's just the same guy again, he's only 29, he's the same age as Devontae Adams, younger than DeAndre Hopkins. It wouldn't be crazy if he just came out and he was the same guy that is amazing. I also saw a stat by Dynasty_IM on Twitter that said Michael Thomas has the highest career point per game among all active wide receivers. That's pretty crazy. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about, skyrocketing up my rankings, is Romeo Doubs. And I wanted to treat this video, the 2 guys up top are guys that are moving up my rankings, and then a couple of these other guys I wanted to talk about because they're getting some steam. I think it's important for me to sort of come out here and tell you guys what I think about these rookies that are rising up. Are they should we just pass on them? Should we just say, okay, the hype has gotten insane, let's not even really treat this with any kind of, not really sure what word I'm looking for, but any kind of validity. But with Romeo Doubs, I had him outside my top 150, and after this weekend's update, I have him as my 1106 as my wide receiver 57. And at this point, I think you have no choice but to just put some respect on Romeo Doubs' name and accept it's time to just move him up in your rankings. And I know making plays in practice and preseason isn't stuff I love buying into and adjusting things off of, but I think it's fair like this on a rookie. And I don't even love Doubs as a prospect. When you look at his numbers, his breakout age isn't that great, his college dominator isn't that great. Let me see, hold on. I got it pulled up on the other monitor. I guess his breakout age was decent when it's at 19.4. College dominator rating also doesn't look terrible. 63rd percentile. So he's like fine. He's coming out of group of 5. He's just not, it's nothing great. He looks like your normal group of 5 wide receiver. His best comparable on player profile is Jabbar Gaffney, who I don't even know. He's not a great prospect, but I think in redraft, he's still a fine pick, where if you're looking at the double-digit rounds, he's a rookie tied to Aaron Rodgers, and you can lean into that uncertainty where Doubs, is he good? Who earns targets in this offense? It gives him a nice ceiling where there's not a ton of target competition. He's tied to Aaron Rodgers, and then he's this mystery box of a rookie wide receiver. And it's not even so much that you need to buy into Romeo Doubs. You just have to buy into the profile of what rookie wide receivers can offer you in fantasy. And this is a really cool chart made by Michael Dubner, and I believe Jack Miller. Michael Dubner's over there at RotoViz. Jack Miller's over there at Established to Run. And as you can see, rookie wide receivers get more productive as the season goes on. And rookie wide receivers, they backload their scoring. So you can go out there and you can draft a rookie wide receiver. We're drafting Romeo Doubs 10th, 11th, 12th round. And you're drafting him in a spot where you don't have to start him right away. He can be on your bench. He can sort of rotate in as a flex. And then by the time that injuries hit, by the time things sort of, the boat gets rocky, then we're hitting week 8, week 9, week 10, week 11, where that rookie point per game starts to go up and up and up. And then eventually he's somebody that you can start to put in your lineup and get difference-making production from. And we've seen recently in years past rookie wide receivers do great things. We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown, day 3 rookie, come out here, absolutely smash. We saw, I think Darnell Mooney's rookie season was pretty dang good. I'm trying to think of day 3 guys. I want to say Diggs was pretty dang good for a day 3 rookie coming out. But if you just want to look at rookies as a whole, we had last year, of course, Chase, Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Before that, you had Ayuk, T. Higgins, Jefferson, of course. CeeDee Lamb looked pretty good. Before that, you had Ayuk, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel. So, not Ayuk, my bad, but A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel. And you get breakouts every single year from rookies that come out here and are just absolute league winners. So I don't think that it's that far off to pick Doubs on that thesis of he's a rookie wide receiver, he's going late, and instead of picking him or Dusty, Devontae Parker or something, I think it makes sense to just put Doubs ahead of those types just because of his upside. Because if Aaron Rodgers goes out here and throws for a 30-plus touchdown season, and Doubs can be in 2 or 3 wide receiver sets by midseason, I think you're looking at something good where you can have a highly efficient stat line. As of right now, he's only really competing with Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins. He's ahead of Christian Watson on the depth chart at this point. He seems to be the wide receiver 4. It wouldn't be that crazy for him to sort of climb the depth chart as the season goes on and be a difference maker down the stretch. I think right now he's a fine pick in the double-digit rounds. I have him as my 1106. I think people taking him 9th round, 10th round are a little bit out of their mind, but 11th round I think is a spot where I'm fine. We're sort of taking dart throws at this point. He's a rookie. Again, I don't love the profile, but it's really less of what he looked like as a prospect than it is just him being a rookie when it comes to redraft, right? We're talking about an 11th round, 10th round opportunity cost where I'm a little bit more harsh on that when it comes to dynasty, because if I'm spending even a 3rd round rookie pick, I want you to be a good prospect. But again, I'm not saying that Romeo Doubs is a must draft. He's not really somebody I'm even taking a lot of, because you do have sickos taking him in the 9th or 10th round, but he is somebody that I'm not going to sit here and, cross my arms and be stubborn and say, I'm not taking Romeo Doubs. He's like a 16th rounder to me. I think we've seen enough noise and enough smoke that it is time to move up Romeo Doubs. Now, the next guy we'll talk about, Brian Robinson. I had him outside my top 150. He is now my 1203 as my RB49. And it's not just time to move Brian Robinson up, but it's also time to move Antonio Gibson down. And it's kind of sad to see at this point, I got to be honest with you guys. But when we look at the Washington preseason game from yesterday, they played the Chiefs, and this is what the snap counts looked like when they ran with the starters. And McKissick sat out. And when we look at this, Brian Robinson straight up outsnapped Gibson 11-8 with the starters and had 8 touches to Gibson's 2. Guys, this is really bad for Gibson. McKissick will be the passing down guy. Gibson was operating as the passing down guy yesterday, but again, that was because McKissick was out. So in week 1 of the NFL season, I think McKissick is the passing down guy. I think Robinson is the early down grinder. And then Gibson takes whatever is left over between passing downs, change of pace, snaps, all of that. And that's really ugly for Gibson. There is no more CMC ceiling for Gibson. He needs multiple injuries. I still love the archetype of this. He speed, score, athleticism. He looks like a Jonathan Taylor. He played wide receiver in college. It all made so much sense. But we're now in year 3. I think the dream's over. It really is sad to say. I've moved him down from RB22 to RB33 at this point. I think that might even be too high still. I'm not drafting Antonio Gibson really anywhere unless if he's just falling and I have to take him. I've moved Robinson from RB59 to RB49. It seems like he'll be getting usage right out the gate. He has some upside. Now, when we talk about Brian Robinson, the prospect, right, just in terms of talent, I didn't like him coming out. This is what my prospect database pulled up as his comps. And this is a loaded screenshot, so we'll sort of go over it real quick. But you have the prospect info, so that's, where and when did they get drafted, their player name, their prospect tier. This is just a bunch of bronzes. But the way that my database and my prospect grading works is I have legendary, elite, gold, silver, bronze, so kind of like Madden. I know Madden just came out. I've been messing around on Madden. By the way, anybody has any good tutorials on that skill-based passing? I've been struggling recently. I got to be honest with you guys. I've been struggling on that. But back to fantasy. It's tiered out like Madden. Bronze is the lowest hit rate. RS grade is a grade out of 10. Based on that grade out of 10, you qualify for bronze through legendary. And then I have that rookie comp area where the database spits out grades for production, film, athleticism, receiving, age profile. And Brian Robinson's, his comps are bad. Alex Green, Montario Hardesty, Lorenzo Booker, Kenny Irons. None of these guys are good. He was a 5-year guy at Bama, 23-year-old rookie. We know all of that is not good. But I think when we zoom out and look at redraft, I think the equation really is that, dynasty, we're talking about early second, or late second, early third on him, so that's a different cost equation. When we're talking about like an 11th, 12th round pick for him in redraft, it's huge. I'm down to just lean into the uncertainty of this backfield, along with him being a rookie makes him a fine pick, and then we can zoom out. And I know I just said that he sucks as a prospect, and here's all this advanced analytics as to why he's not a great prospect. When we zoom out and we're just thinking about redraft at a cost of a double-digit round pick, he's a Alabama running back, so you do get that like Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake corollary. So guys who were never really starters on that team, kind of even like a TJ Yeldon, even though he didn't really pan out. But guys who were never even starters on Bama come out here into the NFL and sort of take on a bigger workload. He's 6'2", 225, so he has size, he has speed, runs a 4.5, and he had 35 catches in his final year, which is pretty damn good for a running back. Now, obviously, the Alabama offense, that's only like an 7-8% target share. But I don't know why I can't talk, fellas. But it's interesting. So I'm moving Brian Robinson up. I used to have him like behind McKissick. Wasn't really that interested, but it seems like right out the gate, he's going to be getting some run in this Washington offense. Now, the next guy we're going to talk about, fifth guy skyrocketing up our rankings. We have two more to get to. Isiah Pacheco, Rutgers boy. I think New Jersey boy as well. So you do love to see that. I will say that I didn't really I knew of Bill Melton out of Rutgers, and I watched him, but Pacheco, when you watch Rutgers, never really popped to me. He was outside of my top 150. I now have him as my 1205 as my RB51. And the Pacheco steam this offseason has been so wild that I wanted to come on here and speak about it because I have been getting a lot of questions in streams and everything. How are we playing Pacheco? And I think it is one of the more interesting it's one of the more interesting debates from a strategy perspective when it comes to Pacheco because he's just been someone that has flied completely under the radar this entire time. And then this last 2 to 3 week stretch, it's been nothing but Pacheco. He's moving up. And when you're like us and we're sickos, and we've been drafting since May, and Pacheco wasn't even going drafted in May, it's hard to now come out here in August and move him up to the 12th round after being an undrafted guy a while back. Now, I will say I'm still not even on market with him. In high-stakes leagues like NFFC, where we did a high-stakes draft last night, really fun stream, he goes in the early 10th on there per their ADP over the last week. So I think me having him in the 12th round is a good compromise there. Again, I think it's probably wrong to be super stubborn on Pacheco, right? It doesn't feel great moving him up, but he does feel like one of these guys where he could be a complete whiff, and it could really suck, but again, it's a 12th round pick. It's not the end of the world if he busts. You can just drop him, pick up another running back off waivers. But if there is somebody this year that can be James Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, guys that you wish that you moved up higher and adjusted to this new information, I think Pacheco is drawing live to be that. I'm not saying he's going to be, but he is that archetype of a running back picking up steam here in August that do we move him ahead of market, do we move him with market, or do we just remain stubborn and say, you know what, I don't see this guy as a top 12 round pick. Now, when we talk about Pacheco, he seems to be pretty much like RB2, RB3 on the depth chart. This is a really good write-up by Hayden Winks, a friend of the program, on Underdog. He wrote this up where he said Clyde Edwards-Helaire received the first 6 snaps. This is from the same preseason game, Washington versus Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire received the first 6 snaps, including 3rd and short, but Jerick McKinnon entered on the first 3rd and passing down. CH immediately re-entered after the 3rd down conversion, signaling that CH's role will be on early and short yardage downs this year. McKinnon played the next 3rd and 10s too, but was subbed off for CEH once the Chiefs made it to the 5-yard line. Pacheco only played 1 meaningless snap on this 13-play drive. For now, it's CH on short yardage and McKinnon on passing downs. Pacheco will back up both of them in the Darrell Williams role from last year. Ronald Jones, who only played in the 3rd quarter, will likely be cut or will be the RB4. And if he's the RB4, he won't be active on game days. That's a really big asterisk to have in there. Most teams only carry 3 running backs, especially a team like the Chiefs who also carry a fullback on their game day roster. It would be really shocking to me to see Ronald Jones be active on game days if he doesn't get cut there. And this is a great write-up where we know CH is going to be the short yardage between the 20s guy. McKinnon's going to be the passing down guy, and then Pacheco is going to be this backup change of pace. And it's big that Pacheco does kick return and punt return, so he's going to be active on game days no matter what. He's firmly the RB3 on the depth chart, RB2 on the depth chart. It depends what you think happens from a contingent upside role. CEH goes down. Does McKinnon inherit those rush attempts, or does Pacheco fill in as the early down grinder with McKinnon staying as his passing down work? My guess would be the latter, where McKinnon's role probably stays stagnant, and we see Pacheco get the first crack at the between the tackle stuff. We'll see how that works out, but I do think he's interesting. Where Darrell Williams was great last year, he was like a 17-point per game guy, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire was down. I'm not saying that Pacheco is going to be that, but he has that upside as just a running back on a Chiefs team that we want pieces of. And he's similar to Romeo Doubs, where he is a prospect that I didn't even have comps for on the Discord. So along with the Patreon redraft season, I really don't talk about redraft stuff, but on the Dynasty side of things, I have my rookie comps and a lot of really cool stuff in the Dynasty space on the Discord. Pacheco was such a deep prospect that he wasn't even drafted high enough that I pulled up comps for him. So I was really curious to see what the database would spit out for him. And this is what we got. And I have to say, I think these are actually more promising than Romeo Doubs's. And I will say as well, I think I meant to show Romeo Doubs's, but I don't think I have them on here. Hold on. Yeah, so we'll look at Doubs's in a second, but when we look at Pacheco, for being a 7th-round running back, having comps of Elijah Mitchell, Latavius Murray, and Jeremy Langford. Jeremy Langford didn't really do anything, but I remember that there was some hype there when he was on the Bears. Pretty solid. The issue with him, he doesn't really have any production. Also, I left the production, film, athleticism, receiving age profiles, just their number grade instead of the letters, but still you can kind of get a feel for where his strengths are. He has no production to really look at. He has no 1,000-yard rushing seasons on a Rutgers team. He had no 20-plus catches on this team. Really, all you're zooming in on is 5'10", 216, 4.37 speed, which is really appealing in this offense where he's this ambiguous handcuff profile with home run potential. That's all you're really getting with Pacheco. But again, in the 12th round, when running back starts to dry up and you're staring between Pacheco and guys like Ty Davis Price, and you're looking at, I don't know, it gets ugly. Like right after that Khalil Herbert range and you're looking at the James Robinsons of the world, I think he becomes interesting in that area. Now, I know I talked about Doubs. I meant to show Doubs' comps earlier, and I know that this is out of order, and this I never do this, but I did want to show this, where Doubs' comps are pretty bad. When we look at his highest comps in terms of average point per game through their first 3 seasons, I hope y'all said bless me. It's not great. We're looking at like Mike Williams, Austin Collie, Tajay Sharp, Trent Taylor, Keyshawn Johnson, all no-name wide receivers. But again, I don't think the bet is that he is an amazing prospect. I think it's just him being a rookie in redraft. He doesn't need to have all of the positive indicators at this opportunity cost. I think it is also interesting that Collie one, because there is a chance here that Romeo Doubs is like how Peyton Manning and Austin Collie were, that he is that to Aaron Rodgers. If he really is making as much of a rapport with Aaron Rodgers as we think he is. I know we're grasping for straws here. I also make sure to filter all these guys for a group of 5 guys to sort of, key in on that small school type of prospect. Again, looking pretty bleak for him, but I do think that it is this hyper-specific situation where if Aaron Rodgers really does like him and wants to pull him along, I think he has a ton of upside in that role. Now, our last guy that is skyrocketing up my rankings, Trey Sermon. and I hate to say it, he was outside my top 150 before. Now he's my 1604 as my RB64. He moved up an infinite amount of spots since he wasn't on the last rankings update. Also, since that last rankings update, I moved it from top 150 to my top 200, so we expanded it a little bit more. And now he's at my 1604. And I think Sermon's a fine dart throw at this point. We have Mitchell dealing with a hamstring injury. This backfield always has a ton of fantasy potential wrapped in a bunch of uncertainty. I think Sermon's a really great way to play this backfield where he's the RB3 on the depth chart at worst at this point. When we look at the week 2 preseason snaps here with the starters, he led the Niners in snaps, where he had 9 snaps, 4 routes run, a target, 3 carries to Jermichael Hasty's and Ty Davis Price's 3 snaps and 1 snap. I think he's very firmly the RB3 on the depth chart. You also have Jeff Wilson, who has been inactive for these preseason games, and that would lead you to believe that he has the number 2 spot on lock on the depth chart. But he had this weird situation where he's been away from the team for like personal reasons, and then he just recently came back. So there's a chance that he's not getting these reps. Not because he is a lock to be number 2 on the depth chart, but just because he hasn't played enough practice snaps yet, and they don't want to have him out there, and they want to recalibrate him within practice first before putting him out there in preseason. I don't know, something to weigh. There's a chance that he's not the RB2 on the depth chart, and when we're talking about like a 16th, 17th, 18th round, like last dart throw pick, I think he's fine. Sermon was a fun prospect. When we look at this player profiler page, he was a fun prospect, right? Fine size at 6 foot 215. What's that, like a 4.6 40? Wasn't super fast, but he did look great from a film grinder's perspective. I know a lot of film guys liked what he had between the tackles. You look at some of those Ohio State games in that final year with him and Justin Fields where he just blew up teams for like 200 plus rushing yards a couple times. I do think for what 49ers want to do, I think that he can fit in there. I think that Damian Harris is actually a great comp for him as one of these guys, like he was on the Patriots where he just redshirted his first year and then eventually became fine. I think Sermon has a similar path in his range of outcomes where he just redshirted his first year like that, kind of like Damian Harris, and then he comes out here and shows that he's at least a pro, right? That he can at least be in the mix in a backfield. I think that would be really big for Sermon. Again, I wasn't massive on him coming out, but I didn't think that he was going to be as bad as he has been. He graded out as a silver in the RS grading system as well for anybody out there that cares. So that is interesting to watch. Now, that is it. 6 players, skyrocketing up my rankings at this point. Again, if you want to see all of the players, all of the rankings, my top 200 PPR, half PPR rankings are on Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. Also, big announcement. Now, this is an absolute Hail Mary on the Patreon, but we do giveaways every time we hit milestones. We hit 250. I'm doing a giveaway, a signed jersey giveaway on the Patreon. We are very close to hitting 500 on the Patreon. 500 patrons. It's going to be a stretch. We have 21 days to do it between now and the first Sunday of the NFL season, which is September 11th. If we hit 1,000 patrons by then, and I don't think we'll be able to do it. We'll see. It's something I'm gunning for. If we get there, if we get to 1,000 patrons by week 1, the day that it happens, I will randomly select one of the patrons, and we will draft a silver bullet team on the NFFC. $1,000 buy-in. I cover the entire thing. We're not splitting halfsies. I cover the entire thing. It's on my dime. You'll come on here. We'll stream the draft. We'll draft together. We'll co-manage the team the entire year, and we'll split whatever the winnings are 50-50. I think that would be really, really cool to do with you guys. It is a really lofty goal, though. So if you want to see that happen, if you're interested in possibly making that happen, make sure you get down below. Check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. And if you're just interested in dominating your leagues as well, that's also a good place to do it. It'll be pinned down below in the comments. It'll be in the description. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you get down below, subscribe, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner.